Good afternoon, Shavua Tov, everybody. Welcome to the Israel Brief, brought to you by Lay of the Land and hosted by myself, Rolene Marks. And this week's Israel Brief opens with a more somber brief. Yesterday, there was a terror attack in Jerusalem, very close to the Kotel, the holiest place for Jews, the Wailing Wall, which saw 4 people injured, but Eliyahu Kay, 26 years old, and Ole from South Africa, who lived here in the community of Modi'in. He was murdered by a Hamas terrorist who was neutralized. 4 other people were injured and have been released from hospital. But it's very personal for us here in Modi'in. Many of us, especially South Africans living in Modi'in, are connected to his family in some way, and the shockwaves just reverberated throughout our city, throughout Israel, through to South Africa, to London, all over the world. The slaying of this bright young man who worked as a tour guide at the Kotel, who devoted his life to his community, to his people, to his country, who died al-Kiddush Hashem, in the sanctification of God's holy name, who died a martyr. And earlier today he was laid to rest. Thousands of people gathered at HaMenuchot Cemetery in Jerusalem to bid him farewell and to comfort his family. Among the dignitaries present was Diaspora Minister Nachman Shai, who spoke movingly, as well as Eli's commander and his older brother, reminding us that he would want people to carry on his good work in his name, not to mourn him, but to carry him on. And I have to say, and this is very off script of a news broadcast, to watch the live feed, to see the sorrow, but also the profound love that was present in that room, is a reminder that sadly we are all too familiar with terror attacks in this country, with war, with anti-Semitism. But that love through the sorrow is what sustains us and is why we will prevail. Eli will be remembered by his grandparents, his family, his parents, his sibling, his friends, and his girlfriend. It is our prayer that his memory be eternally blessed, and may his family know no more sorrow. In other news, over the weekend, the UK Home Secretary Priti Patel announced that Hamas, the terror organization, will be proscribed. In other words, they will be banned under the law and recognized in their entirety, including their political wing, as a terror organization. Anyone who is caught supporting Hamas could stand to face 10 years in prison. Patel said in her statement that this was one of the steps that the UK is taking to help combat rising anti-Semitism. Hamas is founded on a charter that advocates the genocide of the state of Israel and Jews, and we hear this in the rhetoric around the world, especially earlier this year when Israel engaged in a defensive Operation Guardians of the Wall. We heard horrendous language from London to Johannesburg to New York to Buenos Aires to Sydney to Berlin and everywhere in between. This also effectively puts a major impairment on Hamas receiving funds, and was a decision that has been welcomed by Israeli leadership, including one very special man, our President Isaac Herzog, who is in the United Kingdom on his first official tour at the moment, and more about that later. Yesterday, a 67-year-old man was also stabbed by a terrorist walking with his wife in Jaffa. The terrorist was neutralized, and thank goodness the victim only sustained light injuries. However, earlier today, Israel's Shin Bet announced that they had arrested at least 50 Hamas operatives and had uncovered a major terror plot to carry out terrorist attacks in the West Bank and Jerusalem. And we are reminded again of how we paid the ultimate price yesterday with the loss of 26-year-old Eliyahu Kay. And we thank our security forces for being ever vigilant and ensuring our protection. Hamas do not only terrorize Israeli citizens, they also terrorize their own citizens in Gaza Strip, which they govern. And our last story is a much more positive story to end this broadcast, and that is President Herzog's trip to the United Kingdom. He's there on a 3-day official visit. He will meet with Prime Minister Boris Johnson and other officials. He will meet with parliamentarians as well. However, yesterday he met with Chelsea Football Club's owner Roman Abramovich and spoke about combating anti-Semitism in sport. He also met with another very special man, a 92-year-old Holocaust survivor and Olympic weightlifting champion, Ben Herzog. Ben Herzog actually turned 92 today and paid tribute to Holocaust survivors and Jews who had competed in the Olympics. Earlier today, he met with His Royal Highness Prince Charles, the heir to the British throne, and they spoke about various issues, including being part of mutual royal families. For many of you who don't know President Herzog's history, he comes from an illustrious line of rabbis and diplomats, including Chaim Herzog, a former president himself, as well as Abba Eban, one of our most famous orators and Israel's former ambassador to the United Nations. They also spoke about climate change. The president told His Royal Highness the Prince about Israel's plans to be at zero emissions by 2030 and our plans to use our chutzpah, our brains and our technology to help combat climate change. But really moving was the gift that the president gave the prince. He announced a nursing scholarship at the University of Jerusalem, that's Hebrew U in Jerusalem, in the name of his late grandmother, Princess Alice. Princess Alice is honored at Yad Vashem, Israel's National Holocaust Memorial and Museum, as being one of the righteous amongst the nations for her role in saving a Jewish family during the Holocaust. The president also thanked the prince for his role in ensuring Holocaust education and his role as patron of many Jewish charities. So those are our top stories for today. You can check out our website at www.layoftheland.online. Our Facebook page is at Lottel Site. If you are visiting us there, if you're viewing us there, please consider liking or following us and sharing our content. Please help get Israel's side of the news, especially on a day like today, out to as many people as possible. We are also on our YouTube channel. Our channel is at The Israel Brief. And if you're watching us there, please consider subscribing by clicking on the red subscribe button, again, so that we can get news from Israel that you won't hear in the mainstream media out to as many people as possible. And we're on Twitter at Lay of the Land 5. Please interact with us there. You can follow us. You can tweet at us. We love to interact with you. So with the Monday edition of the Israel Brief, I'm Rolene Marks. Don't forget to tune in again tomorrow for your top stories.